Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
And a good day to you, sir.
And a good day to you. Who knows when you guys are listening to the latest episode of the Greenwich Bible Podcast, but all I know is we're happy that you're here because this is episode 207. It's March 10th, 2025. My name is Ethan Shalloway, joined by the lovely Chris Salona. Chris, do you remember what you had for breakfast on March 10th, 2024?
Why would I remember what I had for breakfast on March 10th, 2024?
I was trying to channel my inner Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser and that guy from the mystery, whatever, where they ask random questions.
Honestly, if we could figure out what day of the week it was, I definitely had I just had eggs.
Probably had eggs.
Yeah.
Chris, how are you doing today, man?
It's been a tricky. We're in a weird part of the timeline here, so I'm doing all right. We're recording this Sunday night, March 9th, and this episode comes out in I suppose 12 hours, 11 and a half hours, give or take. And the clocks have changed. I can still see the last bit of daylight up in the sky, which is great because it's 7 p.m. So I'm happy about that. But just really poor clock management on my part this weekend. I finished work and got home from the gym Friday night at like 7:30. I even went grocery shopping Friday night after the gym. I was like, I'm getting this out of the way and we're going to be rolling. It's going to be good. I was like, I have no plans this weekend. There's nothing that was on my schedule. I was like, I'm going to roll in, do what I want. I'm going to be really well rested. And, I slept in a little bit Saturday morning, was kind of just like bumming around a little bit, went for a walk. And then one of my buddies texted me. And this was just really fantastic. And I got a text message. He said, any interest in drinking 6 beers today? So naturally, that did pique my interest after all. Getting that text on Saturday morning, I was like, that sounds like a pretty great idea. So we agreed on the time, got some of the fellas together, and then I received notice that it was a BYO MHL event, so bring your own Miller High Life. And just so happened, I had 6 loose Miller High Life cans in the fridge. I think that I had purchased in advance of episode 200 live, because I think we were both drinking High Life that night. So that was great. I visited my family on the way to the BYO MHL event, played a bunch of pool, played a bunch of darts, and then it got to that tricky point in the night where it's like you drink 6 beers, and drinking 6 beers is fantastic. It's amazing. But the problem is,
I know exactly what happened.
10 times out of 10 after drinking those 6 beers, you want maybe more beers.
Someone said, sir, another 6 beers has entered the chat.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh my goodness. Like, well, that's the thing.
6
like,
beers game. Like, we'll be all right. We'll just be here one night. And they're like, hey, can our buddies come in? Another 6 beers. And like, hey, can our buddies come in? A few shots of tequila.
So it was fantastic. We're ripping and roaring and 6 beers turned into more than 6 beers and it turned into food. And then the UFC fights were coming on and like they were like, all right, we got to watch the fights, but the main card didn't come on until like very late in the evening, like 10:30, 11 o'clock or something. So next thing you know, it's like I went over to my friend's house at 4:30 in the afternoon to have 6 beers, and
12 hours later,
it's like it's 2 p.m. It's 2 a.m. and like I'm still there, and the compound effect of that is it's not 2 p.m. It's not 2 a.m. It's 3 a.m. because the clocks move forward. So I got home at like 1:46 in the morning, and by the time I went to bed, I saw with my own 2 eyes the clock go from 1:59 a.m. to 3 a.m.
I did too, Chris.
Woke up at 10:30, and I've just been behind the 8 ball all day. I haven't had much to do today. I went for a walk. I went to go pick up some coffee because I was running out, and I haven't really been up to too much today. But it's just, doing the podcast, this is the last thing that I'm doing on the weekend, which is not the situation that we love to be in, ending our weekend with the podcast, but just poor clock management. There were just some things that got away from me this weekend, but all in all, I mean, it was fine. And yeah, I'm doing okay. I need some good sleep tonight though. But what about you? What was the story of your weekend?
That's exactly how it goes. You have a day where you don't have much to do, and then you get behind the 8 ball, and for some reason that razzles you for the rest of the day. You're like, because you lose your like what you expected. You just lose the time that you thought was going to be easy or something.
Well, then you're not even productive either. When you have
Right.
when you have a blank schedule, you're like, all right,
It's very difficult.
What am I going to do? Like, you see all these people like out on the weekends and like they're reading, they're doing all these things, and like, what am I don't even know what I did today. Like, I went for like I got my walking in, like I stretched and all that off day.
Walking is back.
Walking's always been here. I've been
Big year for walking. I hear.
Oh yeah, dude, I've been committed to get like 12,000 steps, 6 miles a day on foot. I've been doing that since like November. So all through the winter, I was getting it in, podcasting, listening to podcasts, not actually recording podcasts while I'm walking. Although
he's walking right now.
I am currently briskly walking in my neighborhood. But
so
yeah,
would you say that you burned a timeout too early in the half, or did you just go to the locker room with timeouts in the pocket?
Yeah, it was the issue was I didn't use my timeouts, and then by the time I had to put together a drive or two, I didn't. The clock was not in my favor. It was funny. I woke up Saturday morning. I got a good night of sleep Friday night, and I was laying in bed. And I for some reason, Friday night, I decided I wanted to rewatch that movie Margin Call with the that we reference all the time of I'll Have to Pay. So I got like 40 minutes into it, and it got late. So I was like, I'm going to bed. And then I woke up, and it's just a great feeling. Like on a Saturday morning, you're like watching a movie at like 8:30 in the morning in your bed. So then I finished at 9:30. I was like, there's nothing that I have to do this weekend. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. And that ended up with me getting a little complacent when it came to the clock and my timeout management. And the next thing I was kind of behind the eight ball the rest of the game.
It happens. It happens to everybody. All the great coaches, Andy Reid was criticized for being a bad manager of time, and it happens. Yeah, my weekend was, it's just been a busy week. I'd said we moved places. This is my first podcast in the new place. We got our Wi-Fi set up on Wednesday. So the first 3 days we didn't have Wi-Fi. Actually, like 5 days. I think it was Friday night it went out at the other place. So we moved all the stuff, and we've been there for 5 years. So we had all the old roommates had left stuff, and we didn't have a dumpster to throw stuff in. So we were like kind of moving around and trying to get light bulbs and just random stuff. But it was after work and training, so there wasn't a lot to do during the week, and it just was busy. And then I worked a half day on Saturday because we could work. And I went and did that, and then this day, like I said, we slept through the alarm clock bad. We didn't use a timeout in the beginning of the day.
Yeah,
and
it's tough.
We should have. They had a really good run to start the game, and we should have stopped to stop the momentum, but we didn't. We let it get carried away. So yeah, I just feel like I've had to be in a couple places at once, and hence why we are. Of course, we did not plan for the podcast earlier this week to get it done, so that's why we're doing it now, and that's fine. I had someone. We were doing some coaching today, and there was an athlete that said he recognized my name from the Grunge Bible podcast. So,
oh goodness,
it was pretty cool. It was a good reminder. It wasn't him; it was his friend. We were coaching javelin, and so it was he was like, "Do you like doing the podcast? Is it fun? Is it tough to do it?" Because I said we've been doing it for just about 4 years now. I was like, some days are easy, some days are not. Like today, I was like, today we pushed it back, and this is probably the second latest podcast we've done.
Yeah, it's not early.
And I said, it's always difficult until you sit in the chair. Once you sit in the chair, once the game starts and all the fuss,
it's like what
all
they
the
always
pre-game
say for the big game. As soon as you get that first hit in, as soon as you get that first shift out on the ice, it's just like any other game.
Yeah, it's just like any other game. So now that we're sitting here and we're rolling, we're bantering. We got this day of music coming up. We're not worried about it. It's gonna be a good podcast. So my spirits are lifted, and then I'll be fine. In the words of Brian Sella, I'll be fine in 30 minutes, but the next 29 minutes are going to move like concrete.
Yeah, you can count on that. And this episode is important because it's the penultimate episode before the 4-year anniversary. So
I can't believe it.
I don't know what we should do for 4 years. I don't know if we look back and just like talk about some of like the best episodes that we've done and do a retrospective. I don't know. 4 years that's a long time.
It is, dude. We have our degree. We're gonna have our degree like next week.
We do. Bachelors of Science.
Like we have our degree. I mean, oh yeah, it's crazy. I was actually talking to a kid a ton today about because he was out having difficulty flying the spear, and I was like, 10,000 hours, man, 10,000 hours. Like it takes. Takes a long time to get used to it, and like this podcasting, I don't know how many hours has been into it, but there has
been quite a few.
I mean, if you can do 1 hour per episode, but it's more than that, obviously.
Yeah.
So we're getting there.
Yeah, man.
So this is next week will be a good week, but we have this week to take care of. So
yeah, you better.
Thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to us every week. I know those last few weeks we've been a little crazy, so we're just checking in and giving you guys. A live look and just something to listen to. I hope that's all right. I hope that's interesting. And because this day in music is always interesting, and you bet we're going to be talking about Elvis Presley again. So you can count
Cat
on
is
that.
out of the bag. The king is going to check in.
Oh yes, he is. But as we like to do, we like to thank everybody that supports us. We are not funded by any major organization at all. So it's actually just funded by the people. So we have a Patreon that you can go support there. We have 3 tiers: the $2 tier, the $5 tier, almost said 3, and then the $10 tier. So prices are changing all over, but they are not changing in the grunge. Not right now, not yet. I will say I got gas for under $2.50 the other day.
That's pretty impressive.
I'm honestly, and so
what do you normally pay down there? Like $2.60, $2.70 has it been?
Like
or
$2.80 or $2.
Okay.
Like it's usually right under $3, $2.79, $2.80. And I was trying to think, and this is, I've been driving for about 15 years. What's the lowest gas price you can remember?
It was kind of a unique period in time, obviously. But I remember at the beginning of the COVID pandemic in 2020, I went to my local gas station. It was Hy-Vee when I was still living in Iowa, and it's one of those like grocery store, but they have their own like attached like gas stations as well. And if I remember correctly, it was something stupid. Like I paid like $1.30 or $1.40 a gallon.
What?
It was that low.
Oh my gosh!
For some reason, like gas was cheaper in Iowa because for some reason, something with like the corn and like the ethanol they produced, like there was like a cheaper level of gasoline that was like more easily processed or something. I don't know, but I remember at the time, like because all of these gas stations and the suppliers had so much gas, and they obviously didn't anticipate the pandemic exploding in the way that it did, that all the prices were way down. I think it was sub 150. But I mean, It's fluctuated. So I remember when we were kids, during like the Great Recession in 08, 09, like gas was almost $4 a gallon, and it's gone up, it's gone down, and I don't know, I feel like it's been in like the twos for a while, which is, that's just like the price you expect to pay, with gas.
Yeah, I feel like it's always $3 in Pennsylvania for the longest.
Well, it's so much more expensive if you're in an urban center too. It's always funny. I remember when I would road trip from Iowa to Rhode Island during the summer times, like I'd like to stop in Pittsburgh, and like my one rule, like you can't get gas in the city because it's going to be $1 more expensive. It is. That has me beat by a long shot. I can't remember filling up for under $2. Even when I was younger. I have no recollection of what they were during high school. I could look it up. But $2.49 seemed really. I was like, this is, how low can we go? It's like, this is awesome. Yeah, that's not bad, man. That's pretty damn good. Yeah, I just looked up.
What is it there?
In March of 2020, the national average price for a gallon of standard unleaded was $2.20.
Wow.
So there you have it.
What about in 2013?
Oh man, let's see if we can find it, because that's what probably went about when you started. Yeah, like 330.
330.
Yeah, 339.
That was my senior year. That's when I graduated.
Yeah, it's been all over the place, up, down. But that's the one thing. The price of the Patreon's not going up. As far as I am aware, there is There's no head of state that is going to levy a protective tariff on the Grunge Bible Patreon either. So there's not going to be any sort of associated tax or trade war. I don't think, unless maybe we institute a trade war with like another Patreon podcast or something, and see what happens, because we have to force people to buy Grunge Bible-akin. But yeah, so 2, 5, and 10, and we've been straying away from doing these episodes, but the offer still stands, and we are going to get back to the backlog that we have, where if you join the Patreon, we will reach out to you, and you will be able to select an episode topic that we will do. We are going to get back to them. I think we have like 4 or 5 of them in the tank from people that have recently joined. So that's an added benefit. And then if you join at the top tier, I get to say your name in abundant thanks every week, as I will do right now. Our top tier at the time of this episode is Black Hole Sean, A Bit Dusty, Doug Endy, D-Boat, Eddie Vedder Got Me Through My Second Divorce, Gochu Johnny, Pona, Jamie Lynn, Jade Mercado, King Buzzo Stole My Hair, Carlene Salona, The Michael Dooley Project, Millie, Nikki Six, Russell, Sherry Matthews, Seattle 4 Fanboy from New Jersey, Sunshine Slackers, Abraham is the cutest basset hound ever, and What the Fuck is Up, Denny. So thanks everybody for your continued support. Appreciate it, and I'm really looking forward to it. It would be perfect on the 4-year anniversary to be able to say a new name. So that is my wish for next week's podcast.
To say 4 new names.
4 new names. Yeah, one for each year.
One for each year. Yeah, it's the least you guys could do. So please consider joining and giving us some dough each week. Each month. Each week if you want. I'm sure we can work something out. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to this day in music. March 10th throughout the years. There's a big first one. I think not going back as far as we usually do. Sometimes we have some really 100 years. Going back to 1963, producer Rick Rubin is born. Now, Rick Rubin is an absolute hoss when it comes to producing music. Yeah. Chris, you read through the list. Do you have it handy of the people that he's worked with?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Give me some rope here, because I've got like 4 decades worth of work to do. And yeah. I'm sure, because like I've never been one that's been particularly interested in like the producers of the music world, so I've not studied it the way that I do the artists, obviously.
Right, producers, directors,
yeah, it's kinda... and like I'm familiar obviously with a lot of the producers that have worked with my favorite bands, like Brendan O'Brien, Pearl Jam collaboration obviously is always the one that I think of because they did so many albums together. But like Rick Rubin's a name you hear all the time, and you're like, wow, like that, that's like the guy,
you know his name.
You know his name. And before we recorded, we were chatting about this, and this is the first time I've ever like read through everything that Rick Rubin has done. So just a brief sampling of all of the individuals that he's worked with, and the bands and acts that comprise his production discography. A lot of hip hop in the 80s, Run DMC, Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, Public Enemy, The Cult is in there, Danzig, Slayer comes up in there. And as you move into the 90s, you've got Red Hot Chili Peppers. He did a bunch of albums with them. Let's see what else you've got here. There's some Mick Jagger in there, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, as well as I think he did Wildflowers for Tom Petty. He also collaborated with Johnny Cash on the American Recordings, the string of 6 or 7 or 8 albums that Johnny Cash did through the rest of his life. 9 Inch Nails is in here as well. AC/DC, Metallica, Donovan is joining the game here. Sheryl Crow's popping around. Lucinda Williams, more Slayer, Rage Against the Machine. Aerosmith is making an appearance. Audioslave, their debut album, is in here as well. Limp Bizkit, Joe Strummer, Jay-Z is popping in here. Weezer makes an appearance as well. Shakira, more Audioslave, more Chili Peppers, more Slayer. U2, Poison, Linkin Park, Kanye West, Neil Diamond even, Jacob Dylan, Metallica, Pete Yorn, Avett Brothers, Brandy Carlisle, Kid Rock, Josh Groban, Adele, more Metallica, ZZ Top, Lana Del Rey, Black Sabbath, Lady Gaga, Ed Sheeran, Wu-Tang Clan, Billy Corgan, Santana, Avett Brothers, I believe I already said, Imagine Dragons, The Strokes, more Chili Peppers, Neil Young and Crazy Horse, Lil Uzi Vert, Travis Scott, Marcus King, Kesha. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's fucking crazy.
Oh man, it is so crazy. And like, hearing that list, it's kind of cool to go through the years, obviously, up to the present day. He's still doing stuff. I mean, back in the 80s, if he was born in 63.
He's 62. He'll be 62. Yeah, that's it.
So in the 60s or in the 80s when he started, that's like
young man,
20 to 27 years old that he's doing these bands. And I mean, I'm so impressed by the versatility. I mean, you mentioned Slayer, Kesha, Travis Scott, and Johnny Cash among all of those other, that's everything. That is literally all the genres that you could think of. And what'd you say he produced 8 of the best albums? He won best album of the year.
He's
8
got,
times.
Yeah, there's something ridiculous. He's got 8 Grammy Awards and he has 2 for album of the year. One of them was from the Dixie Chicks, now known as the Chicks, from I don't even know what album, and then he won one for his work on an Adele album as well. I mean, he's just a walking, talking award winner, and like somebody like Rick Rubin. I mean, just listing those artists, like that is proof as to why it's silly when people close themselves off from being fans of certain genres, in the sense that like, oh, like, nothing good comes out of that type of music, or I don't listen to that crap. Like if all this shit is good enough for Rick Rubin to work with, like it's good enough for you to listen to, and it's good enough and it has value. And this is one I'd love to do an episode where we kind of get into, maybe the producers of the world. Maybe we invite Drew on and see what's going on here, because it's something I don't know anything about, and I think it would be fun to learn about it in this setting, because perhaps there's listeners out there that also, don't know too much about it.
This reminds me of game knows game, type of thing.
Oh yeah,
Rick
that
Rubin,
guy knows ball.
Yeah, that guy knows ball, and like what ball are we talking about? It doesn't matter. I mean, if you're out there and say you're working with you're in a band and you need a producer, the genre, the people that stick in one genre, like the versatility, or say how he's probably, extremely rounded in his skill set because of working with all these people. Like, I think that's a really important thing to, point out and realize.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like we, as listeners, you may have a favorite genre, favorite type of music, but there's good in every type of music, and I think there's more similarities than you care to admit when going between the the jazz and the rock and the blues. I mean, there's so much stuff that we've gotten into a little bit here and there, talking about influences, and it's really cool to see a producer kind of like do all that and be trusted by so many artists, and maybe going out on a limb. And I think one of his praises, I'm sorry, people, there's so many people that you probably could hear great stories from. So of course there's some people were unhappy, but not really. And a lot of times, I guess his bread and butter is his stripped down sense of recording, where he doesn't, do a lot with reverb or a lot with, like loops and different backup vocals and all the string sections. It's really stripped down and naked kind of instrument and vocals, which, I think we're all suckers for when it comes to bands. I want the guitars making the music,
Oh yeah.
this is a little off topic, and then we'll move forward. But I was listening to, it was kind of on my mind. I'm not sure if we talked about it, but I was listening to Kid Cudi's Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, a classic.
An absolute classic. I think everybody our age that listened to that, and I think came out in, like I said, my senior year, or maybe 2011. It was just so good, and it was actually produced by Rat-a-tat. So the song it's Kid Cudi, MGMT, and Rat-a-tat are on that song. They were the 3 of them made the song. Like Cudi's obviously the vocals, and MGMT, which we, there's some videos going around of them back in the day, and then Rat-a-tat produced it, and he kind of broke down some of the things that he was thinking about when he was, and what the sounds he was using, and it's really crazy. It actually made me, I sent it to Drew. I'm not sure if I sent it to you as well. I think I did, but I was a little caught off guard how kind of roped in and intrigued by music production, and he he produces beats, where Rubin is the engineer, I guess, behind it. But man, it's just like, who would have thought that a Rat-a-tat and Kid Cudi collab would be like such a big song at that time? And it's just that crossing of genres and trust in one another's music ability that makes these wonderful songs. And I think collaboration, it just made me think about collaboration a little bit more for that moment. And it's a wonderful thing. And I think that picking the right producer to work with you on the album, like just how the fingerprints show themselves in the song, and like how you can listen to certain albums and know who produced it. It's an underrated aspect of music that I would love to get into a little bit more, basically.
Yeah, it's like a language that you can learn to speak to be able to identify those things. And I think,
same with directors in movies.
In addition to identifying, you learn to appreciate things that you may not have noticed before. I want to share a Rick Rubin quote that I just came across. And like now that we're talking about him, my memory is flooded back with all the times that I see that people share different quotes of his on social media from, things that he said in interviews or books or, mini documentaries or what have you. But he said, "Living life as an artist is a practice. You are either engaging in the practice or you're not. It makes no sense to say you're not good at it. It's like saying, I'm not good at being a monk. You are either living as a monk or you're not. We tend to think of the artist's work as the output. The real work of the artist is a way of being in the world." That's great. I like that.
Yeah, kind of fully encompassing of the lives of the artist. And it's so true.
Yeah.
So true.
Absolutely. So happy birthday to Rick Rubin, 62 today. Perhaps that might be a rabbit hole that we come back to. Yeah. But we're gonna have to do a lot of legwork beforehand, or else we're not gonna make it. We're not gonna make it off the launch pad with it. But we'll see. Let's keep things rolling here. We're gonna go to 1964. On March 10th of that year, Simon and Garfunkel record their song "The Sound of Silence," which obviously has gone on to do many wonderful things in the world and be very renowned and all that shit. And I'm sure, as is the tradition with Simon and Garfunkel, Paul Simon probably did everything for it, and Art Garfunkel was just fucking around because he doesn't have any talent and he's a hack. So thank you, Paul Simon, for this.
Such a strong opinion on we've never got into the beef of Simon and Garfunkel. Maybe
there's some good beef there, man. Yeah, this could be.
There's honestly
we should do an episode on the great beefs of music history.
Exactly what I was about to say. What I was about to say. We could talk about Fleetwood Mac's relationships within the
their
band.
incestuous beefs. We talk about obviously the Robinson brothers, the Gallagher brothers from Oasis.
That's a good podcast right there.
Oh yeah, that would be an excellent podcast.
All right, moving up to 1967, Aretha Franklin issues her first album on Atlantic Records, "I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You," featuring the hit track and her soon-to-be signature "Respect." It sets her on path to, no doubt, huge stardom.
Yeah, man, that was the big one. Respect. Obviously, still everywhere. I remember. So I went to a very Catholic private school most of my life until I got to college, actually, and I think it was in high school. Like I went to a prom, and like obviously, like if you're like these Catholic school proms, the chaperones and like the powers that be would prefer to legislate and kind of control like the way that you're dancing with people, obviously, because it can't be inappropriate. And at one of the dances that I was at, I think it was my girlfriend at the time, like her prom, or might have been, I think it had to have been hers. Like the administrator, like anytime she would see something like there was like not very Christian going on the dance floor, like she would like switch the music to like Respect by Aretha Franklin, like, just,
wow.
very, very strangely trying to remind everybody to be respectful of one another. But I don't know, but that song Aretha, I had to include that one on the list just because fantastic artist. So now it's time to get to what we've all been waiting for. On this day in 1975, Elvis Presley records "Fairy Tale," "Green, Green Grass of Home," and "I Can Help," and "I Love You So." It's just an absolute wonderful quartet of songs. Towards the end of his life, he only had a few years left to live at this point. I have not heard any of these songs. I don't know of any of them, but if the king did it and it shows up when we look for This Day in Music, you know we're going to be talking about it. So Elvis, I mean, the Elvis streak continues.
From my understanding, you know, I think that it's more impressive that he got 4 songs done in a day.
Especially like the spot in life where he was at the time.
People do 24 hours and maybe get 1 song out, but no, Elvis,
people do years and maybe get 1 song.
Yeah, who knows the details behind this?
Yeah,
he recorded 4 songs from the notes we have. So.
Love to have been a fly on the wall. I'll make a quick editorial note here for this next one that's on the list. It's totally up to you if you want to do this one or skip this one, because I don't know anything about this band. I just decided to put it. You can do this one or skip to the final one. It's totally your call.
No, I was wondering if there was a story behind this one.
No, there's no story behind
apparently
it.
In 1978, the debut full-length album by the Buzzcocks, Another Music in a Different Kitchen, is released. And I don't know anything about this album, but I do know that Another Music in a Different Kitchen is very important, and it has to do with, you know, how I view it, like, you know, just spending time with friends. You always end up talking life in the kitchen and showing songs to people at the afters or what have you. And it's just like the kitchen is a very important meeting place, especially in shitty small kitchen areas and in dark lit rooms. So I can imagine this, you know, it must have been very important.
Should we become Buzzcocks guys? Like, should we get into this? The only thing I know about the Buzzcocks,
I'm not even sure the genre.
I don't know either. There's only one thing that I know about them, and that's why I put this on here. But in 2003, I remember there's this video of Pearl Jam performing Wish List at Madison Square Garden, and evidently the Buzzcocks opened for them, and they're, as they often do with Wish List, it's like this long drawn out thing with this interlude, and like Ed was like, you know, preaching as he tends to do, and he's like gesturing to the crowd and to like the packed arena, and he said, "This is proof that dreams can be a good thing." And then he says, "And after all, we played with the Buzzcocks tonight." So evidently, perhaps that was one of Eddie Vedder's dreams, to one day take the stage with the Buzzcocks. And he was able to accomplish that. So that's what we got going on there. So happy birthday to Another Music in a Different Kitchen. That's huge. One more event here on March 10th, 1991. And I'm going to preface this by saying that I don't think this is true, but I'm going to say it anyways because I looked it up in a few different places, and multiple different sources referenced that this was true. Evidently, allegedly, on this day in 1991, Mookie Blaylock, Pearl Jam, what would become Pearl Jam, Mookie Blaylock go on the Seattle radio station KISW and announce that they are changing their name from Mookie Blaylock to Pearl Jam. And apparently they said that they were inspired by going to a Neil Young show and seeing the jamming from Neil Young and Crazy Horse, and they decided to change their name as such. I don't think this is true. It doesn't seem very Pearl Jammy or Mookie Blaylocky to go on the radio and declare that they're changing their name. As far as I understood, that there was an issue with their label, and their label was not allowing them to continue as Mookie Blaylock because they took the name from the NBA player, and it was going to be an issue, you know, when 10 would come out, or the yet to be named debut album would come out. So then the compromise was that they named the album 10, which was Mookie Blaylock's jersey number. And there's so many different origin stories for why they named it Pearl Jam. I've heard they were inspired by like jamming, and then I think like Jeff said that like his like great grandmother's name was Pearl or something, and they combined the two. But who knows? This is one of those things that I think they very intentionally have chosen to lie about as the years have gone on, and I just don't think this is true. Like who was going on the air and was like, "Hey guys, by the way, we're Pearl Jam now."
I don't know. I mean, you're right. I don't know why it doesn't sound like something they would have done.
This feels like the Seinfeld episode where George Costanza is at work and he tries to declare himself that he now has the nickname of T-Bone. I don't know. It just seems fishy to me.
That's hilarious.
But
that's interesting. I mean, I'm sure maybe we'll have to do a little more research. I wonder if you can get the recording of the radio, it's in the archives, hopefully.
That would be, there's a lot of things in the archives, Ethan. So perhaps that one's there. That's This Day in Music from March 10th. And that's everything important that's happened on that day in music history. So let's move forward here. That was This Day in Music. We did miss a little bit of a bigger day, I think, especially as it concerns these parts of the world. Although Elvis and Mookie Blaylock and Rick Rubin are important. Yeah, they would have been there. But a couple days ago on March 8th, that was a notable day in music and in culture and everything. It was International Women's Day, and I think as it relates to our practice here, it was also the anniversary of Soundgarden's album Superunknown, which was released on March 8th of 1994. So I think, in the spirit of that, we'll probably be riffing on that a little bit today. I would like to direct everybody way back into the archives. As we said, there's a lot of stuff in the archives, perhaps Pearl Jam's KISW announcement, but confirmed to be in the archives way back in episode 51 of the Grunge Bible podcast was our official album review and discussion of Superunknown. And that episode came out on March 11th of 2022. So that's a few years in the rear view now, but Superunknown, man, it's funny. Yeah.
I was going to say, it makes sense that it was episode 51, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is basically the third year.
We did it right around the time of the anniversary. Yeah.
It's like a 3-year anniversary of that episode.
It's a 3-year anniversary of the 28th anniversary. I'm reading the show notes and it was like, this week, yada, 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 discuss Soundgarden Superunknown, which turned 28 on March 8th and is one of the most complete records of the entire decade. And I remember at the time, that episode, we did song by song review and we kind of glossed over Fresh Tendrils. Yeah. And we had the dearly departed Patreon member Fresh Tendinitis reach out to us and tell us that we were sleeping on that song. And I remember we went through a big era where we were big Fresh Tendrils guys and we were trying to figure out exactly, what a tendril was. And I don't think that we ever figured it out. And I'm not prepared.
No, we did.
I don't remember what it was, and I don't remember.
It was the part of the plant, like when it first starts to bud.
Yeah, you're right, of course.
When it first starts to bud, I don't know exactly. I just remember it was a part of the plant that when it buds, it like takes in a lot of the nutrients or something, like it's just like the fresh budding.
I love
parts
that
of a plant.
we're relitigating this. Yeah, I've got it right here. A slender thread-like appendage of a climbing plant, often growing in a spiral form that stretches out and twines around any suitable support. So dude, the fresh tendrils. That's incredible.
So if I just hope, I know that we lost him as a Patreon supporter, but I hope that he's Fresh Tendinitis still listens to the pod. So if you're out there,
yeah, I hope we're definitely.
So this is an excellent callback for you, and we need you to come back on the supporting train at least one more time. Now we just gave him a great shout out, but it really was a nice eye opener because that song does rip. I think we put it on the Louder Than Lift playlist. It's pretty epic.
Yeah, it totally, and so much of this album is, right? And I'm sure if you go back,
it's a beast of an album.
It really is. And this was the first Soundgarden album that I listened to, as I'm sure I talked about way back in episode 51. But at the time, my first car that I had that I took to college, I didn't have like an aux cord, obviously, and this was far before the days of Apple CarPlay, nor was it a car that possibly would have been able to support that. But I had one of those really janky like CD or cassette auxes where you put the cassette in and it had the aux cord, but it was so unreliable, so I started collecting CDs. And Superunknown was one of the first ones that I got. And you'll love this, Ethan. I have an incredibly vivid memory of driving from Ames, Iowa to Pittsburgh, Kansas, to go watch Jim Toth compete at Division II Indoor Track and Field Nationals. And I remember listening. I stopped in Kansas City at a diner on the drive down and like had a diner burger. It was great. And I listened to Superunknown the entire way, just front to back, front to back, front to back.
No way.
And it's just like, I will always associate that with that album, even more so than I do like, as a younger a younger boy or teenager or whatever, getting acclimated to Black Hole Sun and so on and so forth. But dude, this album, man, I'm glad that this was my gateway into Soundgarden, because it's kind of like that fork in the road for them, where it's like, it's a mixture of what they were, as well as a sign of what they would become, I think, with Down on the Upside and the more experimental stuff. Yeah. But it's a little bit more complex than just the straightforward heavy stuff that you get, I think, on Bad Motorfinger. So it's just that perfect, it's the perfect path in, because, you're there and you've got the fork in the road in front of you. It's like you can go back to the old stuff, you go forward to the new stuff, but you're in a great spot right there too. So it's just, I'm so happy that that's the way that it worked out for me, because you can see those, if you will, you can see those tendrils growing in every direction.
That's amazing. Well, 31 years ago, there was no fork in the road. It was just a shift of Soundgarden. But and it goes well with the name Soundgarden. Obviously, we're talking the tendrils of the sound.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. It's so, see, everything has a metaphor. That's an amazing, I just want to go back. That's an amazing story of driving to see your friend compete at indoor nationals. I think that everybody should be doing stuff like that in their life, random trips to support people.
Oh, yeah.
So this album, it's just a ripper, dude. It's 15 songs, 1 hour, 10 minutes, 70 minutes long. That's a beast, man. I mean, anytime an album, usually it's like 40 to 45 minutes nowadays. Yeah. But you get 15 songs over an hour, and they're obviously like, killers when you look up and down the list. Fell on Black Days, Mailman, Superunknown, Black Hole Sun, Spoon Man.
It's unbelievable.
Like Suicide.
Like half of these songs went on to unbelievable commercial success, which was not a given during Soundgarden's history. Obviously they had broken through and they had gotten the major label deal. I think they were the first from like the Seattle area to get one of those. But I mean, Bad Motorfinger, I think the revisionist history in me would lead me to believe that maybe that album was more commercially successful than it was. But I mean, this one, obviously, I mean, the music videos that they had for this really obviously broke through to the mainstream, thinking about, obviously it begins and ends with Black Hole Sun and everything. But even Fell on Black Days, Day I Tried to Live. I mean, so many of these songs I think have just kind of taken on a certain level of popularity that hasn't receded. You always hear about these songs when you're talking about the 90s, and certainly when you're talking about grunge. But even like the lesser known or lesser consumed songs on this album still are unbelievable. I mean, Let Me Drown, Mailman, obviously we're huge fans of around these parts. Limo Wreck, 4th of July, Like Suicide's a great song as well. And even obviously, as we learned a couple of years ago, Fresh Tendrils. I mean, it's really the complete package. And it's just it's a perfect mix of everything that the band was good at.
Yeah. It's just the album, like you said, it explored a lot of different sounds and time signatures that he said the first Bad Motorfinger is super heavy. And they just did I think it's just a great example of a band, doing something different and doing it really well, and changing their sound in like just the right amount, the appropriate amount, and doing things, basically just like changing things, but staying the same at the same time.
Yeah.
Evolving, but also like keeping the roots and, spreading the fresh tendrils while keeping your roots. It's just good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I was preparing, all the different posts for the anniversary to go up on the page. And whenever there's a significant album anniversary, I tend to, that entire day is more or less just going to be stuff from that album. And very consistently over the last 9 years of doing the page, this is one of the more difficult albums to do that for, because I just, even to this day, I find it really, really challenging to pick 4 or 5 to share. I just want to share all of them. And that's a feeling that I don't get for certainly many of the grunge albums. I think of this one. I think 10's a hard one to cherry pick 3 or 4 or 5 from. You just want to do the whole thing. But I mean, this one, I mean, there's not one skippable song on this, and there's not one extraneous song that's not necessary to the feeling of this album. And you know, the fact that they had 15 that were essential to this is unbelievable, and how creative and how fruitful, you know, this point in the band's timeline was. But it's so hard to pick, like, how do you describe this album without just like laying the entire thing on somebody?
Yeah. And that's why that year at the 37th Grammy Awards, it was nominated for Best Rock Album of the Year.
Spoon Man was nominated for an award at the time too.
And Black Hole Sun, I believe.
Yeah.
I think they both won.
Yeah.
I think they both won. So pretty cool. I mean, awards, you know, they don't mean everything, but it is something, you know. Yeah, it's awesome.
They definitely mean a bit. It's funny.
Back then, for sure.
A few days ago, I posted, like, I made this meme of, like, I believe in 1991 supremacy, and like all the albums that came out in 91, 92, 93, 94. And 91 and 94 tend to get a lot of play in terms of, you know, just which year were people's favorites. And I think out of all of the albums or EPs or records that came out in 94, some of the notable ones, you had Live Through This by Hole, Jar of Flies came out, Vitalogy from Pearl Jam, Hungry for Stink by L7, STP's Purple came out, Nirvana Unplugged was officially released, Toadies released Rubberneck in that year. And I mean, honestly, I think Superunknown might take the cake in terms of the best of that year as far as our genre is concerned. And I still feel that way. And, you know, the fact that this was my path into Soundgarden, I'm not tired of it yet. Whereas maybe different things in their catalog, I don't listen to as much. Like this one's always, you know, I never have any regrets when I put this one on. It's time well spent. Yeah.
No, it's always a good time. And this is the time of the year where, you know, we talk about it and we get energized to go listen to it. Yeah. So I'm excited. So this album was produced by Michael Beinhorn, which, you know, we're talking about producers, so I think it's important to bring up. And the band, they talked about this experience, and they said that, you know, Michael was super into sounds, and he was almost anal about it, that it took the piss out of us a lot of the time. By the time you get the sounds that you want to record the song with, you're sick and tired of playing it. And so I guess he always preferred musicians to like push them towards sounding like whatever. And apparently, for instance, before recording Black Hole Sun, he made Cornell listen to Frank Sinatra, which I think is pretty cool.
That's the best thing about reading about the recording sessions. And it's oftentimes the producers that come out with this just completely, utterly batshit thing that they need the individuals to do. And did you say that was before Black Hole Sun?
Yeah.
And then something that Beinhorn, I'm not sure how to pronounce that actually, but something that he had said about Black Hole Sun. He said, "I think for the rest of my life, until I draw my last breath, I'll never ever forget how I felt when they started playing that song. From the very first few notes, I felt like I'd been hit by a thunderbolt. I was just absolutely stunned. What in the world is this? I get goosebumps thinking about it now."
That's an experience that, this is the problem with not being there when it happened.
Yeah.
Like hearing it for the first time and especially being shown it, something like that. And you hear stories about bands and artists that maybe show a demo or show something, and immediately the producer, whoever they're showing, the label or something, they're like, this is gold. And that's a cool feeling to, with a huge, obviously one of the biggest rock bands ever, to be a part of. So
and perhaps maybe the forced listening to Frank Sinatra is what was the clincher. That's funny. That makes me think of, I believe it was Don Fleming who produced Sweet Oblivion by the Screaming Trees, and I think if I remember correctly, they recorded that in New York City at one of the recording studios. And Don Fleming had all but necessitated that Mark Lanigan take a sip of whiskey before he sang, because Fleming was convinced that by coating your throat with whiskey, it would give his voice like an added level of warmth and some other technical term that he used. So it's like, and certainly at the time, somebody who probably needed no further encouragement to imbibe in various substances. I guess it was a means to an end of creating an album that I was just chatting with the Michael Dooley Project about Sweet Oblivion, and really, really a crime that album did not achieve more commercial success than it did, because I think it's as complete of an album as Superunknown, like just terms of no skips and just super, super well done. But just, the tricks of the trade, that certain, same thing in sports. It's like, certain hitting coaches or pitching coaches or what have you, they swear by this one thing. Ethan, do you remember the movie Rookie of the Year with Henry Rowan-Gardner, the boy who plays for the Cubs?
Yes.
And the pitching coach was like, it's like there's a lot of pitching coaches out there and pitchers who swear that ice is the key to keeping a pitcher's arm young. And he's like, well, other people, they think that heat is the way to go. And he's like, well, I figured it out. The key to pitching is hot ice. He's like, you got to put hot ice on your arm, and that's the secret.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. I haven't watched that movie. I
certainly haven't either. I just remember that movie.
Yeah,
I remember going to Blockbuster as a kid, and like my brother and I, like the classic, like, hey, like John, you get to rent a movie, Chris, you get to rent one. And it seemed like damn near every time we were going to Blockbuster, like one of us wanted to rent that movie, and we watched it so many times. Like we probably just should have purchased a copy, but oh man, it was so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Well, yeah, the Day I Tried to Live, there's so many songs on here that are 4th of July, obviously.
Yeah.
It's one of your favorites, as mine. And I think that it really is time to give it a listen again, front to back.
Yeah.
And I will do that. I'm not going to lie here. I'm not going to sit in front of everybody and lie. I'm going to do that tomorrow.
Well, Ethan, you and I are, what I suppose, probably 13, 14 weeks sober of lying here on March 9th, 2025. That feels good to be clean of that. But yeah, dude, it's interesting. Even like I posted "Let Me Drown," for example, that day. Superunknown, obviously, the title track is just so good. And Head Down, it's just song after song after song. It's fucking perfect album.
Limo Wreck.
Oh yeah, Limo Wreck is great. Kickstand, even Half, dude. Like Half's the really like creepy sounding one with the weird vocals that I think Ben Shepherd
My Wave.
Does. Yeah, dude.
Don't forget about My Wave.
Don't come over here and piss on my gate. Save it. Just keep it off my wave. One of my favorite things about this album, anytime I post about it, as I did on the anniversary, is just the title track Superunknown. Alive in the Superunknown. First it steals your mind, and then it steals your soul. Like it's so good. And this is just one of those things, like, to this day we've not been able to define what exactly the Superunknown is, but we've been alive in it for quite some time.
Yes, we have. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Let Me Drown, because I think that rounds out that we've mentioned every song on the
I believe we have.
Not in order, but we did them all. So, because that's how good, the album is complete. It's awesome. Very experimental. And I think there were thoughts about, not thoughts, but they didn't want to argue about what they should cut. So I don't think they cut like anything.
Yeah, I don't know.
Pretty much that's why it's so long. They just
the deluxe version has some weird stuff that I haven't spent a bunch of time with. Tracks like Exit Stonehenge, Kyle Petty, Son of Richard, Jerry Garcia's Finger. Those tend to come
Garcia's Finger?
Jerry Garcia's Finger is a song that is on the deluxe version. I never really listened to the deluxe version too much because like I don't like to shuffle albums and I tend to just want to listen to the album front to back. But I gotta dig deeper into some of those.
I like that
and see what's going on there.
Jerry Garcia's Finger. I didn't even know. I didn't even know about that one.
Oh yeah. Well, we're gonna have to report back on that one.
Awesome. All right. Let's move on. I think that wraps up the Soundgarden portion of the episode.
Yeah, I would say so. 100%.
So we definitely have a lot of work to do. I think regarding the women of rock in our time, we haven't done a proper episode for a few bands that get brought up a lot.
Yeah.
The L7s, the Babes in Toyland.
Even Hole as well. People,
Hole,
with Courtney Love, people want us to talk about that, and even Veruca Salt. There's a lot of Bikini Kill. A lot of bands out there that we gotta talk about rather. But I'd say like the first album that comes to mind, from the female fronted or comprised of women, in our genre. I love me some L7, dude. Their album from 1992, Bricks Are Heavy, with Pretend We're Dead. And I think one of my most favorite tracks is called Shit List, which, I mean, the lyrics are, it's like when I get mad and I get pissed, I grab my pen and I write down a list of all the assholes who won't be missed. You've made my shit list. I mean, that's perfect. That's perfect advice, and I think we all need to do that from time to time. But there's so much great music, I think, from the women of that era, and the fact that they were able to get together and have success with it as well. And I mean, these bands are still popular too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think Sonic Youth, they're still playing, right? I think Kim Gordon and them.
Yeah, Kim Gordon's always around. Breeders as well. Breeders just they opened for Olivia Rodrigo like last year or 2 years ago because she's been influenced by them quite a bit. So it's cool, that people, and I think we have a role to play and need to do more of that and get people reacclimated or acclimated for the first time to a lot of these bands because there's some fucking great music.
Oh yeah, and it goes back even farther up, Stevie Nicks and Janis Joplin, and there's a lot of I don't want to say it's just different the way that they command the stage, and it's always great. Like it's a lot of fun to go back. I love watching like the old Woodstock stuff. If we're going way back, like Woodstock, or even like Aretha Franklin and some of the more pop, rock and the way that they command the stage. Actually, just the other day, I mean, this isn't women in rock necessarily, but it was the Spice Girls. Spring break videos, and actually there was also a video of NSYNC, and I was thinking about boy bands and girl bands of those the 2000s and stuff. But the Spice Girls, the way that we were a little bit older, so we were a little younger when they were really big. Also, the boy bands, I wasn't super into that, but massive. And I kind of wish there was a little bit more bands like that. Boy bands and girl bands, like a group of five,
like in more in like the pop vein is what you're referring to, kind of.
Yeah. Like, and they all kind of branched out and had their own careers. I don't know. I think it's a cool little, a blip in music history, how that came to rise super big, and then I don't know. Yeah. I was kind of lost in it for a second, looking at some old Spring Break stuff. But the Dixie Chicks, I mean, it's like 5 of them. I think it was 5. And they were all like mega stars in their own right, and they were huge. They were the biggest like act around.
Oh yeah, I do.
A little off topic, but
yeah, one rock band that is, I think, pretty topical to the genre that we talk about a lot. That's active now that I want to talk about is a band called Thunder Pussy. So Mike McCready was a big supporter of them earlier on in their career, and I saw them in 2023. When they opened for Jerry Cantrell. I saw Jerry Cantrell in Providence and Thunder Pussy open, and they were fucking unbelievable in terms of stage presence, in terms of their songs, the aggression and the intensity that they brought with it, and just like flat out how well they could play. It was unbelievably impressive stuff, and like I had heard Mike McCready in different interviews and whatnot talk about them in the past, but I'd never listened. And that was one of those moments where I was so lucky and so grateful for the fact that like my first time being introduced to their music was like live. Being on the front rail live watching them play, because like I think like their music was definitely you know, I think the people that were there to see Jerry were definitely receptive to their type of music, and I think everybody was unbelievably impressed if they didn't already know that band. And of a lot of the shows that I've gone to, there were a lot of people, I remember noticing this, there were a lot of people there that were super, super into the opening act and were singing along, and were, you know, there was a lot of energy there that you don't often see, I think, with opening bands. So it's just a testament to what they're able to do. And I didn't know that they put out an album in 2024. I must have missed it. Just about a year ago, called West, that I got to check out. That'll be top of my list for listening this week. But that's a really, really good band that if people aren't familiar with, they ought to check out.
Yeah, I remember that time when you went and saw them and talked about them a little bit on the pod once before. So
yeah,
back on. I'll have to check it out too. Check out the new album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and obviously I think it came up last episode, but you have the Boy Genius crew, obviously,
always,
in music,
yeah.
what they do for music. And Phoebe, I've been listening to her a little bit more recently, and they're kind of where my mind goes, obviously, right away. They're probably the women artists I listen to the most.
Yeah.
Between the three of them, Julie and Lucy and Phoebe. I'm trying to think of.
And Lucy Dacus has a new album that's coming out this spring, actually.
Nice.
So that'll be coming down the pipe soon. And Julian Baker's doing a project with a musician called Torres. That's kind of like a country type thing, which is super cool. So I'm looking forward to that one a lot as well. That's slated to come out here pretty soon. But yeah, man, there's so much good music all out there, you know, from the women of the world.
Yeah, there really is. And I think that we need more. We need more girls picking up guitars. We need everybody picking up guitars.
Yeah,
keep it going. But like, I hope that it continues to be pushed. And I mean, I wish that I could pick up a guitar still. I can, but the girls, it's so much easier when you're younger. So it's, got to get them started earlier. I hope it's still cool to play guitar, basically.
Oh yeah, something that I'm noticing on the internet too, which is super cool. We spoke about it at some point very recently, because I saw it was the Bob Dylan movie, and like it's introducing people to so many different types of music from that era. In particular, I've seen so many people starting to listen to Joan Baez because of that movie, because she played a prominent role in that. And Joan Baez was played by somebody named Monica Barbaro in that movie, who did an absolutely incredible job in her role as Baez. But it's just cool, you get those opportunities to be introduced to really, really unbelievable artists, and I think that's a really awesome touch point. And I mean, certainly, talking about women in music, I mean, and we mentioned a little bit earlier, but I mean, the 60s and 70s was just such a great era. I mean, you talked about the performers of Woodstock, and I think about like Jefferson Airplane with Grace Slick, for example. Joni Mitchell always has to come up in the conversations like that. I mean, there's just so many different places you can go.
Yeah, it really has a lot of history, a lot of music history, and we're still making music history these days. So
absolutely,
that's awesome.
Yeah, man.
As far as the episode goes.
Yeah, dude. Before we wrap up, rapid reaction. There's 3 things that I just got notifications about. Number 1, Davante Adams is apparently signing with the Rams on a two-year deal. The Bills and Josh Allen just agreed to a contract extension that includes $250 million guaranteed. The total price of that contract is $330 million. And as of a moment ago, the Seattle Seahawks are trading DK Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh my
The Steelers,
gosh.
Man. It's funny, like this afternoon. This afternoon, I saw a report, because the Seahawks initially wanted like a first-round pick and a player for Metcalf, which is delusional. But then the report came out this afternoon that they were dropping their asking price to a second, and that DK preferably wanted to go to a warm climate. I don't know the details of the deal quite yet, but warm climate, Pittsburgh, I don't know. But
wow. Yeah, did it say what they got back?
I'm trying to look that up right now.
So this is interesting.
A 2025 second, and Metcalf is signing a 5-year, $150 million deal to extend in Pittsburgh. They don't have anybody to throw him the ball yet, unless the play's got to be to re-sign Justin Fields, I suppose. But crazy.
Wow, that is really crazy. Pittsburgh is, if you know Mike Tomlin, when you deal with receivers from Pittsburgh, and you got the Antonio Browns. Obviously George Pickens,
Deontay Johnson from the past.
Deontay Johnson, Plaxico Burress, a lot of guys.
Antonio Holmes.
Le'Veon Bell, not a receiver, but there's a lot of people that are difficult to deal with, and they
very
make it
mercurial, work.
Yeah. And Metcalf fits that really well. Like,
yes.
Not that he hasn't been like as disruptive as some of these other receivers I named, but it might be a great spot for him to go work with Tomlin and stay on track. And a lot of people, like I said, Deontay Johnson, I mean, he went there or he left there and he kind of shopped around like 3 different teams. So, people can't control these guys, but Tomlin can. So this is going to be huge for them.
I mean, their offense has been so anemic the last several years. I mean, so much of it is the quarterback play. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger for the end of his career was abysmal. I don't know how the defense dragged them into the playoffs his last year.
Every year.
And then they got slaughtered by Kansas City as Ben's last game. But I mean, the Pickett thing didn't work. The Russ thing didn't work. So, I mean, Justin Fields better be getting DK Metcalf the ball quite often, or else there will be problems, as we know. So that one's interesting. And they just traded Geno Smith to the Raiders yesterday. So
and they
changes are coming.
Lockett.
Yeah, and Ricardo Lockett's done. But there's perhaps bigger news than that. The New England Patriots have re-signed tight end Austin Hooper on a 1-year, $5 million deal. Hell yeah, that's the money moves that we need. Him
and Drake May had a connection last year, so
yeah, I suppose. And I think to round out the last sports thing that I need to relate is that my beloved Boston Bruins have officially blown it up. And
happy trails to the 2025 Boston Bruins.
Happy trails to the best era of Bruins hockey that I perhaps will ever see in my life. Brad Marchand going to the fucking Florida Panthers for a second round pick. Terrible.
Damn. Not cool. Cool.
It's not cool, man.
The rich get richer in the Panthers.
Dude. They traded it's funny. So the trade deadline for the NHL was 3 p.m. Friday, and the Bruins had made a couple of deals throughout the week for some minor players that were on expiring contracts, that like third, fourth liners kind of. Trent Frederick went to the Oilers, and then on the deadline day, they traded Charlie Coyle, who was like their second line center, kind of do-it-all guy. They traded him to Colorado and got a decent return for him. So I was like, okay, like that makes sense. Coyle's 33 or 32 or whatever. And then the deadline hits at 3 p.m. I was like, oh, I guess that's all they're doing. And then like 5 minutes after the deadline, within a minute of one another, it's like the Bruins have traded Brandon Carlo to the Maple Leafs, their sworn rivals. And then they fucking trade Brad Marchand to the Panthers, who I think everybody fucking hates at this point. They knocked the Bruins out of the playoffs the last 2 years.
Yep.
I would have been fine with everything except trading Marchand. That was bullshit, but
not quite as bad as Nico Harrison and Mavs.
No,
they were doing.
No, not at all, dude.
Well, the last thing since we're in the sports corner, what do you think about the Bregman signing? And
I love it, man.
Your guy wanting to not be moved from short.
Rafael Devers wants to play third. I think a lot of it got taken out of context, but at the end of the day, he's going to have to play where they put him. I think like. See, the problem is they signed Bregman. They said, "Oh, he can play second base," but they have this prospect, young buck named Christian Campbell, who's the real deal. And the only spot that it makes sense to put him is second. So it's got to be Bregman at third, Christian Campbell at second, and they got to DH Rafael Devers, and he should be fine. He's not a good third baseman, and his paycheck is still the same. I don't know what he's concerned about. But that's where the road will lead in time eventually. But who's to say what'll happen? Now, I think they'll play him at third enough to keep him happy. But I think Bregman will get a lot of play there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm thinking. So the The Sox are trying again for you, right?
I know.
They're
and
the
thing is, we've kind of been fusing in some sports talk here and there in some of these episodes recently, and perhaps, I mean, who's to say? Maybe in the next few weeks there might be a more of a dedicated sports episode coming through for the Grunge Bible podcast feed.
Highly requested.
Yeah, perhaps. I know there's pundits out there that want to have their voices heard.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
I'm glad we could get that little bit in there. That's important.
We needed that. So how about we end up with some songs of the week?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Man. You have one off the top of your head?
I do. There's a few here that I'm looking at, and the one I don't think I brought this up, but have you heard of the band Idols?
I don't think so.
And they just kind of reached. I think it was because of a Tiny Desk classic Tiny Desk concert that they put out. But there's a song, "Never Fight a Man with a Perm," and
that's good advice.
Yeah, good advice. And it's pretty heavy. Like they have this heaviness to them that is really akin to the '90s. When you listen to it, it has like it has like a Turnstile, or it has like a it has that feel to it, almost like not a Rage feel, but really pretty sweet. Like I said, the Tiny Desk concert was pretty interesting and pretty good. Like it just, but they went pretty hard for that little area. So I'll put it in there. It was really solid. So just a new band that's kind of moving around on the underneath that. I don't know. I'm sure people are listening, like, oh, they've been around since whatever, but they're new. They are on the come up. So
that's sick.
Never fight a man with a perm.
No, can't. I tried once. It didn't end well. I'm lucky to be here to tell the tale.
Chris?
My song of the week is going to be from Thunder Pussy, who I just mentioned. It's a song called Speed Queen, and that is from their 2018 self-titled album. I remember they played that when I saw them, and it was just a fucking ripper. They also have
Speed Queen.
Yeah, they have a Jefferson Airplane cover of Somebody to Love, which is really great. But then they also, I think for a television show, they covered Taking Care of Business by Bachman Turner Overdrive, and it's fucking awesome, dude. It's got a great edge. It's super, super energetic. And the vocals are really, really cool. It's just a cool recording. So there's a trio there of songs and recordings that I would recommend, but that's going to be my song of the week.
I love it.
It's also funny too. The last thing I'll say about that band is like you go to their show. It's like Jerry Cantrell played, and like you talk to somebody who like isn't really a music fan, or certainly somebody who doesn't know the band. They're like, oh, like you went to a show last night. Like who played? I was like, oh, like I went to go see like Jerry Cantrell. They're like, oh, who opened? I was like, I don't want to say the name Thunder Pussy to my mom or something.
The Thundercats.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I just can't. Like there's just something like there's I don't think there's certain people in your life that like you can't say the word pussy to like under any circumstance in any context, and this band certainly forced the issue. But
probably a lot of people you shouldn't say.
Yeah, seriously.
It's almost outlawed. But they have it in their name. So what are you gonna do? It's like it's like when you're you're reading in high school and there's a curse word in the book, and what are you supposed to do? You just gotta read. You gotta read the word "damn" in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm. Like like you gotta say hell. Oh no.
You can't get mad at me. It's a part of the and then, like, part of the song.
At the beginning of the class, the teacher's like, all right, like everybody, like there may be some words in here.
No
just
laughing.
Like, please be mature about this. And obviously no one's gonna be mature about it.
Wow.
Great stuff. Well, that's episode 207 of the Grunge Bible podcast.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you next week. Please come back. We'll do better next time. If not, we'll still put it out. So thank you. Actually, 4-year anniversary. You better be there.
Yeah, you better be there. We'll be there. So
I'll be there. We have to.
Absolutely. All right.
It's in my contract.
Same time next week, knuckleheads.
Goodbye, Canada.
Good night, Canada.
Good night, Canada.
All right.